The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the transmission. Across countless systems, the most advanced species, with civilizations as old as the stars, paused in anticipation. Every race, from the crystalline beings of Aquarii Prime to the sentient mist of Jinaur, turned their focus toward the last remaining human outpost. This was not merely curiosity. It was history. Humanity, fragile and tenacious, had somehow persisted for eons, scraping existence from dying worlds and shattered moons. But now, at last, humanity stood on the brink of extinction. The transmission came from Earth, or what was left of it. Once lush and vibrant, Earth had become a dying husk, its skies thick with clouds of ash, its oceans poisoned and receding, and its landmass a fractured wasteland. Humanity's greatest minds had abandoned the hope of restoration centuries earlier. Instead, they pursued survival across the stars. They sent ships, seeds of their kind, into the void. Some carried children cryogenically preserved, others contained libraries of knowledge encoded in photons and neural pulses. And yet, no matter how far they traveled, no matter how many worlds they touched, humanity always faltered. One by one, their colonies fell, devoured by war, failure, and alien terrors too vast to comprehend. Now, as the final moments neared, Earth prepared to speak for the last time. The Council of Galactic Elders convened on HFY, the seat of wisdom for 1,000 species. Here, beneath the shadow of a dying blue sun, their emissaries gathered. All forms of life were represented. Those that walked, swam, pulsed, or floated in ethereal clouds. They spoke to each other through wavelengths of sound, bursts of color, or telepathic harmony. Yet they shared a single thought. What would the humans say? At last, the ancient communications relay flickered to life. A fractured, distorted signal pierced the vast emptiness. The voice that followed was rough and weary, laden with the weight of millennia. "This is Earth," the message began. It was a man's voice, old but strong, carrying the echoes of all those who had lived and died before him. "If anyone is listening, we thank you for bearing witness." The transmission reverberated across the cosmos. Great minds leaned forward, their interest sharpened. Humanity was speaking, and it was not with anger or despair. There was something else in the man's voice, something that unsettled the most imperturbable among the audience. It was peace. The voice continued. "For as long as we existed, we wondered if we were alone. When we found you, the infinite diversity of life in this universe, we rejoiced. We were humbled to learn we were but a spark among countless stars. And yet, no matter how far we traveled, we were unable to escape ourselves. We carried our wars, our fears, our mistakes to every corner of the void." A pause filled the airwaves. Some listeners noted a faint sound beneath the speaker's voice. Wind, perhaps, or the slow collapse of structures long abandoned. It was as if the world itself wept. "To you who have thrived where we failed," the man continued, "we leave behind no empire, no monuments, and no legacy worth your envy. What we leave instead are our final words. Not a warning, not a plea, just a truth. For creatures who prided themselves on their vast intellect, the elders of the galaxy found themselves uncharacteristically shaken. Truth was the rarest thing in existence. Wars had been fought to preserve lies. An entire species had vanished, refusing to face their reality. Yet here, at the edge of oblivion, humanity offered the truth freely. The voice deepened, resonating with a quiet power. We were a flawed species, reckless, stubborn, and short-sighted. We allowed ourselves to be consumed by greed and hatred, often destroying the very things we loved most. But in our failings there was beauty. We were a people who dreamed of better worlds even as we ruined our own. We created art and stories to remember what we could never be. And in the fleeting moments of kindness, we showed one another. We glimpsed a light worth chasing, even when it faded. Across the galaxy, listeners fell silent. On a world of storms, a species that communicated through electric pulses ceased its flickering. On a planet of harmony, songbirds with crystalline wings paused mid-note. The elders themselves, beings who had witnessed the birth and death of entire solar systems, exchanged uneasy glances. For centuries, they had looked upon humanity as little more than a curiosity, a species doomed by its own nature. And yet, as this human spoke, they felt something disturbingly familiar. They felt small. The man's voice grew softer now, as if the energy to continue was slipping away. Do not mourn for us. We earned our fate. But remember this, we were here. In this vast, infinite universe we existed. We laughed, we fought, we wept, and we loved. For every cruelty we committed, there was a kindness, and for every failure, there was hope. Perhaps that hope was our greatest flaw, to believe we could be more than we were. Or perhaps it was our greatest gift. The wind grew louder through the transmission, a howling that seemed to swallow the man's voice. Static crackled, but the message pushed through. If you ever find the remnants of our kind, our ruins, our songs, our scattered ships drifting like ghosts, do not think of us with pity. Think of us as sparks that burned brightly, however briefly. We were the children of a dying world who dared to reach for the stars. There was a long pause. The listeners leaned in, desperate to hear more. Then came the final words, so quiet they almost vanished into the void. We're gone, but we were here. Remember that. And with that the signal died. The council chamber remained silent. It was not the silence of peace, but of discomfort, a heavy, suffocating weight that settled upon all present. For eons, the galaxy had judged humanity as reckless and tragic, a species undone by its hubris. But as they reflected on those final words, they recognized a truth they had long avoided. Humanity had not been so different from them. It was not humanity's extinction that disturbed them, but the mirror humanity held up to the rest of the cosmos. For what species was without flaw? Who among them had not waged war, destroyed worlds, or squandered their gifts? Perhaps the humans had been first to fall because they were first to face their reckoning. And if that were so, what future awaited the others? Word of humanity's final transmission spread across the galaxy. On distant worlds, civilizations that had once mocked human frailty now preserved the recording as sacred. Scholars etched the words into crystal archives. Poets turned them into songs, and warriors whispered them before battle, finding courage in the fragility of life. Some even claimed to see a new purpose in humanity's fate, a warning, yes, but also a challenge, to exist better, to burn brighter, and to remember. And so, in death, humanity achieved what it never could in life. It united the galaxy, if only for a moment, in a shared acknowledgement of their own mortality. Across the stars, species looked inward, haunted by the final words of a broken world. They were not words of despair, nor surrender, nor pride. They were words of truth, raw, imperfect, and eternal. We are gone, but we were here. And for as long as those words echoed across the stars, humanity would never truly vanish.